So for your quiz, in the directions, it is going to say determine the number of solutions for each system by putting each equation in slope-intercept form. So remember, slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. And then what we do is compare the m and the b. Okay, so when you're putting these in slope-intercept form, move over the x, okay, and then you're going to move over what's in front of the y. Make sure that you distribute here. So it's y equals negative 2x plus 6 for the first one, and then y equals negative 2x plus 6 for the second one. So I should be able to see your work for both of these. Now, this isn't something you have to write down. I'm just showing you how we determine this. So if you have the same slope and the same y-intercept, they're the same line. And if they're the same line, you have infinitely many solutions, right? So infinitely many is the number of solutions, and it's consistent and dependent. Anytime there's a solution, it's consistent. It's dependent when there's many. Think about you depend on each other if there's more than one. Okay, and then for B, same thing. We have to know how to get this in the form y equals mx plus b. So to get y by itself, you divide by negative 8. You will have your calculator, so if you put this as 0.5, that's okay, but that has to be a positive 2. Okay, when you solve the second one, you're going to move over the x, so you subtract it over, then divide by negative 4. Negative 1 divided by negative 4 is 1/4. 32 divided by negative 4 is negative 8. When they have different slopes, that means there's one solution. It's consistent and independent. Again, consistent when there's a solution. Independent means one, right? Dependent, there's many. Independent is one. All right, and then for C, again, you're going to be getting them in this form. So when I'm grading your test, I give you a point for doing this correctly, and then getting the answer correct. Okay, so make sure you understand how to divide, how to simplify. You always have to have fractions in reduced form. So there are 0 solutions, and it is inconsistent because it's the same slope but different y-intercepts. That means the lines are parallel. Whenever the lines are parallel, it is inconsistent, and there are 0 solutions. They never meet, they never intersect. Okay, questions for me on number 1? Okay, because number 1 on your test is going to be just like this. It's going to be similar directions here. So inconsistent is how you classify a system when they don't have any solutions. So inconsistent is when there's no solutions. All right, and then 2, you're going to solve by graphing. So again, you want those in y equals mx plus b form. Then you start at the y-intercept and you use your slope. So you start at 1, you go down 1, right 2. Down 1, right 2. And then you can go up 1, over 2, up 1, left 2. Okay, and then for this one, you start at negative 2. And then the slope is 1. So you just go up 1, over 1, up 1, over 1. Wherever they intersect, that is your solution. Will you please double check that you wrote the solution there? Because some of you have the correct graph, but then you forgot to just write the solution up there. So this is at 2, 0, not 0, 2, but 2, 0. So make sure that you have that, okay? All right, and then if you're solving by graphing, how do you know when there's a no solution? When the lines are parallel. Okay, and then what about infinitely many solutions? When the lines are the same. So the same line is infinite solutions, parallel lines are no solution. All right, now for number 4, you have 2 different plans. Plan A has the $50 membership plus $6 per visit. And then you have the $100 plus the $3 per visit. Anytime you see that word per, that is a rate. So the $6 per visit, the 6 has to go with the X. Okay, this fee is that initial fee that we've been talking about, which is a y-intercept. So for plan A, you should either have y equals 6x plus 50 or y equals 50 plus 6x. Notice here it says write equations. Oh, an equation has to have what with it? Y equals, okay? So if you just have this, okay, that wouldn't be full credit on your quiz. Okay, you have to have the y equals. And I chose to use x and y, but you could have used any variables that you want. Just use two different variables. Yeah, yep, that's okay. Yep, so if you use something besides x and y, that's fine. So for me, my x was the number of visits, my y was the total cost. I wrote this down for me so that when I got to interpreting, I understood what was happening in terms of the problem. So you're using a graphing calculator, and it says to round to the nearest hundredth. Okay, so let's get our handy dandy graphing calculator. Let's do the, go to Zoom, and we'll go to standard 6. So we're going to put it back to a 10 by 10, and now we're going to graph. So we're going to use some of the same strategies we just talked about when we went over our homework, okay? So if you are graphing this in the standard window, you only see one line. The first thing I want you thinking about is that y-intercept. This is 50, this is 100. So if my y-intercept is 100, let's make the y max 100 so I can see what's happening there. And then these are your tick marks. So if I go by 10, okay, now that was a really good start. Now I can see both lines, and I know I want to see what's happening over here. So I have to increase my x value and my y value. When you're increasing, you're just increasing the maxes. And I'm just going to take a guess, or I'm going to just overestimate so I know I can see it. So I'll make it 50 and 5, and then 100 wasn't enough, so maybe I'll go to 200 and see what happens. All right, and that was enough for me to see the cross. Once you see the X, that they cross each other, now you can go to calc. So second, and hit the trace button, that's calc. And then you're going to go to intersect, and then you have to use your left arrow. So first curve, second curve, guess. You don't have your answer until you see the intersection. And then once you have it, it says round to the nearest hundredth. So that's going to push it up to 6.67. And then 150, you don't have to round. Now, because we're explaining this in context, a person is not going to visit a museum 16.67 times. So when you're talking about something real, you're going to round to the nearest whole number. So this would be approximately 17 visits. And you guys probably remember this symbol, right? The approximate symbol, about. Okay, so after about 17 visits, the plans will cost the same at approximately 150. They're not going to be exactly the same at 17 visits, because if we round this up, guess what's happening to this number? That's going up too. So we should use those symbols for both. Mm-hmm.
If we are going
No, because if that was like 16.1 or 16.2, then we'd just say at about 16 visits, it would be about 150.
I just know that in
Yeah.
other places you'll have to.
Right, and some other cases just depending on what the wording is. But yeah, for this you can use your normal rounding rules, and again just use the approximation for both. Mm-hmm.
Say around.
Yeah, that would be great. Yep. And then make sure you also explain both the X and the Y. So 17 is the visits, right? And then this is the total cost. So make sure you use like the dollars and that you use both numbers in your explanation. All right, and then for 5, you're using the graphing calculator to solve the systems of equations. We're rounding to the nearest hundredth. So when you're solving this, to get y by itself, you had to divide everything by 2. Okay, so this is your equation. So we're going to put it into our y equals. negative 3.89x plus 21. And please feel free to do this with me. It really does help with that muscle memory if you guys are entering it in and doing this process over and over again. Okay, and then for this one, you divide it by 5. Again, just round to the nearest hundredth when it tells you to round to that. And then we're going to graph. So I use the same window that I did before, and I can see the X in there, so I'll just leave that. You can always set it back to the to your standard window and adjust as well. Okay, the key is that you can see it. Oh, and I wanted to show you that. So right now I can't see my cursor, right? But can't you see that they're crossing close to where your X value, like this is going to be closer and closer to 0? So you want to just use the left. See the X values going down, 15, 14, 13. And if you keep doing that, oh, there he is. See, it made it. Okay, and then you can do your first, your second curve, your gas, and then it will give you your intersection. Again, you're rounding to the nearest hundredth. So that's 2 places. So when you're rounding 2 places, you look at the third place. I put that dot, dot, dot to show you that it keeps going here. Okay, but all you're looking at is this. So that bumps it up, this one bumps it up. If it's 4 or below, it stays the same. All right, for 6, well, first, do you guys have any questions about that, the graphing calculator one? Are we feeling a lot better about the graphing calculator? Okay. All right, for 6, we're going to solve using substitution, and your work just has to be clear and organized. Okay, the clearer you can make it for me, the easier it's going to be for me to grade, and the happier I'll be, and the more points I can give you. Because if it's really understandable, then I'm looking for certain things. For example, for A, I'm going to look to see that you solve something for y or x. I chose to solve for y. X would have been another great thing to solve for in the second equation, so you didn't have to do this exactly like I did. And then I want to see where you substitute, and then you're going to distribute. So a half times 8 is 4, a half times negative 5 is negative 2.5. You're going to get all of your like terms together. Then you're going to move those over. You're solving just a linear equation. And once you find x, you can plug it back into either equation to find y, or I said you could even plug it into step 1. Okay, your answer must be organized as a coordinate point. So it must be -1, 13. You need to have your parentheses. Okay, for B, I chose to solve for y in equation 2. Okay, and then you're substituting that in. So when you are multiplying an equation, a fraction by a whole number, you multiply by the top. 9 times 2 is 18. What's 18 divided by 3? 6. 2 times -6 is -12. -12 divided by 3, -4. You are also going to have your calculator, so you can use that to check. Now, one thing you have to make sure you have, anytime it's infinitely many or no solutions, you're going to have an equation. So you have to write what your equation is. I give you points for doing that correctly. So this would be 6 equals 6, which is true. That's why there's infinitely many. If this was not true, then it would be no solution. Okay, questions for me on substitution? All right, then we have Mr. Jansen, who paid admission to the high school football game for his family, 3 adult tickets and 2 student tickets. Okay, so you could use X and Y for those. You could use A and S. That's what I use for adult and student. Okay, now they tell you that he purchased it for a total of $22, and Ms. Pham purchased 5 adult and 3 students for $35.75. So your first equation should be for Mr. Jansen. Your second equation is going to be for Ms. Pham, and you don't have to have the dollar symbol there. Okay, so just those 2 are fine. And then just so you know, on your quiz, it's not going to say any method. It's just going to say substitution or elimination. Okay, so you just can't use the graphing calculator or the graphing method. You have to show me substitution or elimination. So I chose elimination. which means I multiplied everything here by -3. So you have to show me what you're multiplying by in each case, okay? I'm not going to guess at it. I need to see it, okay? That's your evidence of what you're doing. And then once you combine those, you have 1A equals 5.5 or 5.50. So A is 550. You can plug that back into either equation to find S, which is 275. Okay, and then did some of you write this as a point here? Okay, because if you wrote it as a point, that would be okay. Again, I just put them in alphabetical order. So the adult and the student. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is on your quiz, I'm going to have a part C where you just have to tell me what it means. So you would say it costs $5.50 for an adult to attend the game and $2.75 for a child to attend. Okay, so just be able to explain in context. Okay? So be able to explain in context. Just like you did on the front. All right, any questions on that one? All right, then let's talk about elimination. So elimination, you want opposites. So if this is 2x, if you make it 4x, those will cancel. Again, I need to see this. You have to make sure that you show your work. So you're multiplying everything by 2, then you can add straight down. Again, whenever you have an equation, when they cancel out, you still have to write out what that is. So you have 0 equals 17. If it's not true, put the slash in it. If it's not true, your answer is no solution. That's what goes on the line. Okay? And again, I just put a little note that you must have your equation there. Okay? You have to have that. All right, and then let's check B. All right, so for B, the simplest thing to do would be to make this the opposite of 8. So if you multiply by 8, -8m, this is a fourth, right? So 8 times a fourth is 2. You can put this in your calculator, you'll get -10. Okay, and then we're going to add straight down. So 3n equals -3, divide by 3 to get -1, plug it back into either equation, m is 1. Now, how do you know the m goes first when you're writing this as a point? Yes, so you're always going to put these in alpha order. Okay, you also always have to have fractions in simplest form, always. And I'm going to do this one with you step by step. Okay, but you should have 11 over 19 and 7 over 19. Okay, so simplest form means you have to reduce all of your fractions. Okay, so let's do this one together. Okay, so it doesn't matter if you choose to get rid of your A's or your B's. Okay, so if you cancel out the A's, you want to multiply this by 3. Show me what this is. Make sure you multiply all 3 things by 3. So 6a plus 15b equals 9. Now, if this is a positive, you want this to be a negative. Don't forget to look at the signs so that you don't accidentally double something up instead of cancel it out. A negative times a negative is a positive. And then you can add straight down. Okay? So those cancel. You have 19b equals 7. And then when you divide, if you don't have a nice fraction, which we do not, this one's going to go on, okay, then we're just going to keep it as 7/19. On your quiz, that'll be part of the directions. It'll say leave as a fraction where applicable. So if it's not like a nice decimal, like a half, then we're going to write it like this. Okay, and then you can decide which equation to plug it back into. So if you have 2a plus 5b equals 3, Okay, we know that if you're multiplying a whole number and a fraction, all you have to do is multiply the top by the whole number. Okay, and then we're going to subtract. And I think this is where some of us forget things. How do you get a common denominator? If this is 3 over 1, what do you want your denominator to be? Yep. So you're going to multiply both by 19. 1 times 19 is 19. 3 times 19, you will have your calculator with you. You should get 57. Okay? So then you have 57 minus 35. 7 minus 5 is 2. 5 minus 3 is 2. And then the denominator stays the same. So you do 57 minus 35. That's the top. The bottom stays the same. Okay, and then could you do this part on your calculator? Yeah, you can also just remember how to divide fractions, right? If you do 22 over 19 divided by 2, what saying did you guys use to divide fractions? Keep, change, flip. So you keep, you change, and then how do you flip the whole number? Do the reciprocal. Yep. So put it over 1. It's 1/2. Yep. Okay, and then there are 2 ways you can do this, okay? One way is you can multiply straight across. You'll get 22 over 38. What do you know about the numbers 22 and 38? They're both even. So if they're both even, you can do what? Divide both by 2. Great. You can also see 22 over 2. Isn't 22 divided by 2 just 11? So you could also do it that way. Okay, so A goes first. So 11/19 goes first. 7/19 goes second. Okay, so this was finding A. This is your A. So it's A, B. Okay? All right, what other questions do we have on this review? Oh,
I did odd one.
to get what? Oh, to get -2?
Yeah.
Yeah.